What's the worst customer you've ever had to deal with? Today at work, we started talking about the worst customers we've ever had to deal with. I work at a quick lube place in town, and once we had a regular couple come in and just grease the fittings on their car. I tell them we can take care of it and tell the guy who's working underneath what the deal is. A couple minutes later, the guy tells me the car doesn't have any fittings to grease. I go down to verify that he's right and tell the customers they don't have to worry about greasing them because they're sealed. To this, the customer begins to tell me that I'm taking advantage of him because he's handicapped. The customer is blind and his wife was driving the car. I tell the guy there's nothing in it for me to lie to him, and I wasn't going to charge him anything to do this, but even if I was, he's not paying for anything at all anyway. To this, he replies that all kids today care about is money and dope, and threatens to have his brother-in-law come in and have a chat with me. I told him to send him down and I'd tell him the same thing because I don't understand what the problem is. After about 10 more minutes of arguing with the guy, they leave dissatisfied. Fast forward a couple hours later, this big guy walks in saying that his brother-in-law called saying I was trying to take advantage of him. I tell him the story and he tells me that his brother went to another shop who also told him that he didn't have anything to grease. I asked him why he was there then, and he said he wanted to make sure I wasn't taking advantage of the handicapped. I asked him how he thought I was taking advantage of anyone, to which he told me just not to do it and left. What's worse is the couple still comes in all the time, and neither one of them has ever complimented me for staying clean. Wait, so he's mad that you didn't lie to him and rip him off? Like, I just don't really understand what he's so upset about. You told him there was nothing to grease, and he's like, how dare you? I especially love him sending in his brother-in-law, like, okay, I'm gonna have him come down here and straighten you out. You didn't rip him off, did you? No, I didn't. Okay, well, don't rip off people. I didn't. Okay, well, I'm reminding you not to ever again. What's going on, guys? It's your boy Scrubby here, back again with another video. Hope you guys are having a great day. I know I am. Today, we're going to be taking a look at this Ask Reddit thread I found about the worst customers people have ever had to deal with, because I found it entertaining, so without further ado, let's go. Many years ago, I used to pick up TVs for repair from customers' homes. I arrived at this house, and an elderly woman answered the door and showed me in. She turned on her very old TV to show me the problem, and I could see it was a blown tube and likely beyond economic repair, and told her so. She said, no, you fix it now. I explained that I couldn't do that and that her best option was to buy a replacement, either new or used. And as I'm telling her this, a figure appeared in the doorway behind her, moaning and staggering into the room. It was an elderly man in gaping pajamas with a long strand of thick drool hanging from his lower lip, and the woman said, ignore him, my husband has Alzheimer's, fix the TV. I began explaining that I couldn't do that, but while I was doing so, the woman started just yelling over and over again, fix it. And the husband kept staggering towards me like a demented zombie, moaning louder and louder and getting more agitated, with his strand of drool getting longer and longer and swaying below his chin level as he kept advancing. I said, I'm sorry, but I'll have to go back to the shop now, at which the woman screamed, no, and ran to the door that led to the hallway and slammed it shut, and stood in front of me with her arms outstretched to block my escape. The husband just kept advancing with his drool getting longer and his moaning, raising in pitch to a kind of wailing as I backed up until I was pinned between them both. All the time me saying to the woman, I have to leave, and her screaming, no, fix it. The husband was within a couple inches of me and his swinging drool nearly touching my arm, and I was pressed against the woman when I turned and as gently as possible pushed her out of the way, pulled open the door and ran out of the room and out the front door to my van. As I started the engine up and pulled away, the woman was standing outside her front door, screaming obscenities at me, and her husband was staggering about the front yard, groaning and crying with drool all down his chest, and his Johnson now visible through the gape in his pajamas, an image forever burned into my brain. Alright, I do feel bad for the dude with Alzheimer's just because he's obviously not too aware of everything going on. You know, my great-grandparents had it. That disease sucks. That being said, dude, I feel like the wife should be in better control of what's going on. You can't just let him like a zombie walk around with his Johnson hanging out in the front yard. He needs somebody that's gonna maybe keep a little bit of a better eye on him at this point. Maybe it's better for the both of you to go to a home. I also think it might be time, just because if she's gonna keep like trying to kidnap TV repairmen, it's probably not the safest place to be. Fix it. Fix it. It sounds like a horror movie, like a cult waiting to happen. I walked in and the floor is crunchy, and I looked down to see a name tag from our competitor on a pile of human bones. In high school, I worked at a car wash. While I was wiping rail dust out of a guy's rims, he swung the door open and hit me square on the top of the head and dropped me like a stone. He then proceeded to berate me for being stupid and slow for not getting the soap film off of his rocker panels that I couldn't see because I was A, on the other side of the door, and 2, trying to regain my senses. I stood up and handed my towel to the floor manager and said, "Ask me when you're done with him," and I walked out of the back of the garage. Fast forward 6 years, I'm bartending at a local family establishment, and the same guy comes in with his wife, and from the first minute, he's complaining about stuff. I'm pleasant but brief with them, and eventually they decide they'd like to eat in the bar and ask for menu. I get them their menus, and after serving a few more patrons, I walk over with a pad and pen to take their order, and he says, "You're gonna take our order? I thought I'd get one of those hot blonde waitresses." His wife was visibly uncomfortable, so I shot back, "Your wife called ahead and asked for a young stud bartender. After the meal, she slid me $5 under her plate when he was complaining about the food." About a month later in the same restaurant, he totally unloaded on a waitress for no reason. I was bartending and kicked him out, and he lost his mind, screaming about how he knew the owner his whole life and I was done working there. I pulled out the owner's business card, handed it to him, and said, "Bob gets in at 9, that's his number." 11 the next morning, the owner called me and said, "I heard you kicked out Tyson last night," and I said, "Yes, I did," and explained the scenario. He paused for a few seconds and said, "You did the right thing. He's a jerk. When you're on my side of the bar, it's your bar and they're your staff. Keep it up." Alright, obviously I've made my fair share of videos on Karens, and here's the thing. I could see how maybe, you're really hangry, you've had a bad day, so you start, getting pissy with the manager of a grocery store or whatever one time. I could see how it might happen. That being said, if you're screaming at every waitress and waiter that's ever encountered you, just smacking people with car doors, and then the owner that you apparently know so well backs up the people kicking you out, you just might be a jerk, bro. I don't know what to do if you're this bad at being liked by people. I work tech support for a cable company. A customer calls in asking why his television wasn't working, and come to find out the customer's television wasn't working because his electricity was turned off. And then he argued with me for an hour about how it shouldn't matter, that he's paying for a service and we need to guarantee it no matter what. The customer was certain that we were the only company that still required televisions to be connected to utility power, and then went on about how it must be because the service is not digital like our competitors. "No, you guys don't understand. I'm paying the cable bill, so you're supposed to provide a battery-powered system to make my TV work even if my power's turned off." I love how he has no power in his apartment and his priorities are still somehow getting the TV on, man. Maybe if you spent less time worrying about the TV and more time, working, the power would still be on. I had a guy at Pizza Hut once that came in irate about something wrong with his pizzas that had been delivered. He was screaming at my cashier, who came to me and got me because she was afraid, and I was the only manager on staff at the time, so I'm sitting here trying to talk sense into him. He is demanding that I give him back the merchant copy of the credit card receipt because I don't want you having anything with my signature on it. I tried explaining it to him 3 times that we're not legally allowed to hand it over, and I went as so far to pick up the cash register's monitor and show him that in the system his transaction was canceled. He insisted that I hand it over, and I finally tell him, "Look, I'm not going to hand it over no matter how much you keep yelling. You can either leave now or I'll call the cops. Keep in mind that I have your name, phone number, address, and a credit card, and a video of you screaming at me and my cashier." At this point, he lunges at me and snatches for the receipt. He tears the top half off and storms out of the store. He only got the top part of the receipt showing his order and left behind the signature and tip line. By the way, his entire escapade was because he wanted to make sure the driver didn't get the $3 tip that he signed for. I love the idea of getting bad pizza delivered, getting in your car, driving it to the store, right? They give you a refund and then being like, "No, you're not getting anything with my signature." They gave you the money, bro. They already have your address. They already have all the information you need. The copy of your signature doesn't really matter at this point, especially to the point of assaulting the manager, "All right, I'm gonna go ahead and start punching people until you give me my autograph back." No one knows who you are, bro. They don't want it that bad. I used to work at Old Navy a few years back, a regular retail job, and was doing pretty well. One day, I'm working the changing area, and this dude comes in and tries on pants or something, and then comes out. He starts doing the old pat down of his stuff to make sure he's got everything, and then just freezes, whips around, looks straight at me, and goes, "You stole my keys." Now, this whole time, I was never in possession of his pants or property at any point, so I calmly tell him that I do not have them and they're probably in the changing area. He checks and doesn't find them, comes back out and starts screaming at me to give him back his keys, and finally wants to see the manager. So the manager comes over and tries to comprehend the situation, and she's like, "I doubt he took your things, sir," and trying to defuse the situation calmly. So the dude starts cursing her out and calls the cops. I was literally speechless, and the cops show up 5-10 minutes later, take down all the information, and my manager tells me to go to the back room and take a break while it gets sorted out. In the back, I still hear this dude trying to freak out because the keys belong to a mental institution and I might try to sneak all the weirdos out. After another 5 minutes, my manager comes to the back and tells me the dude did not check his back pocket and that was where the keys were. She made him apologize to me and told him to leave, and I was so confused, but it's funny looking back. Imagine bringing keys that are so important that they lock up an entire institution into the changing room at Old Navy, probably something you want to just leave in the car, and on top of that, not checking all of your pockets before literally calling the cops on some random person that never had your pants. I just don't understand why you're so headstrong that you're willing to call the cops before you check all of your pockets. Or like, why did he pick someone to take his keys? Way more likely they fell out of your pocket in the changing room or something than like some sneaky Old Navy employee going out of his way to steal the keys just to teach you a lesson about key safety. I was working in a general store while in high school, in the UK for context, and we had a decent hardware section that sold cheap tools. One day, just before closing, a guy and his friends come in and they're your standard chavs. So I'm on alert. Because it's closing time, the supervisor is around, so she does the covert follow them around the store while I stay where I am. Eventually, they come up to the counter and one of them puts down some cheap box cutters and nothing else while others mill around the door. My supervisor behind them and I decide this isn't right, so I ask him for ID. I don't know why I thought this was going to stop them. The guy was mid-20s, I must have been 18 or so I'm probably older than you, is what he says. I'm not really checking for age, I'm just trying to stall them for some reason. But I guess I decided that if they were buying these for an attack or something, that they wouldn't want to be identified. I might have been right, I suppose, cause he refused. This went back and forth for a bit, him getting angrier and angrier until he finally slapped down a piece of paper on the counter telling me it's his ID. I looked at it and it's a court summons for assault. It could have gotten worse from there, but they left after I asked them to, so there's not any awesome story or triumph after that or anything. Still, a pack of guys tried to buy a pack of knives at 6 p.m. and tried to prove they were okay to be sold by proving that they were suspected of assault and implicitly threatening me. I just love that you were like, hey, give me your ID. They refused to do it and then slam an assault paper on the ground. It's like, okay, dude, now I really can't sell you the box cutters. I really didn't have much ground to stand on before, but I definitely can't now. It's just weird they wouldn't ID themselves unless they were buying them for some reason that wasn't good, you know? Like you said, mid-20s, definitely got the ID on them ready to go, for sure. I have plenty of terrible customer stories, but exposure to biohazards pisses me off the most. I worked for Kohl's right out of high school, mostly as a customer service associate doing returns and such. Kohl's policy, at least how it was interpreted in my store, was to pretty much take back anything that a customer would like to return. Literally anything. There had even been times where we were instructed to return items from competing department stores when a customer had put up a fuss. So by the time this woman came in, I had been pretty much given up on denying any returns and just let management deal with it on the back end. She was in her mid-20s and had a diva attitude and tossed the bag on the counter with the item she wanted to return, not bothering to take it out like most people, and just handed me the receipt. I pulled out the item to see it was a black teddy, as in women's lingerie, and began inspecting it to see if it had the original tags or had been washed. Being a black piece of fabric, the long white crusty stain became apparent very quickly, and there wasn't any doubt what it was, and the look on her face confirmed it, and all I said was, "Really? Really?" and gave her a shameful look. I then picked up the 2 plastic hangers and used them as tongs to pick it up and walk it over to the trash, and very dramatically released it into the trash, all while giving her the WTF look. I then, without saying anything, went over and returned the item, gave her back her money, and hoped my embarrassing scene caused her to think twice before doing it again. Bro, people are next level disgusting. What is going on in Kohl's where it's like, the return purge? I feel like it's a horrible strategy to just accept all returns no matter what. Because yeah, dude, people are going to start returning underwear with dookie stains on them next. I couldn't imagine ever taking something that I hadn't cleaned to a store and expecting the worker to touch it, let alone something like that, bro. Like, come on. Oh. When it first opened up with exposure to biohazards, I had no clue where it was going to go with that. I was the sales manager in a business-to-business type operation, and we manufactured components that other manufacturers use in production. Most of my customers were great, and even though I left the company 8 years ago, some are still good friends. There were only 2 real hotheads I remember. I once had the president of one of our medium-sized customers call me up cursing up a storm because the parts he wanted today were not sitting on the shelf and it would take 2 weeks to make it. I told him if he stopped cursing at me, I might be able to help him, and if not, I'm gonna hang up, and he kept cursing, so I hung up, and my boss was entirely supportive, even though we never got an order from them again. Another time, I was out on a sales call with a customer that had some issue I don't remember, but I knew I was right about it and he was wrong. When I tried to explain it to him what really happened and why he was wrong, he told me that if you're calling me a liar, you can leave, so I got up and left and didn't even say a word because I didn't have to and never got another order from him either. Both of the above customer companies went out of business during the time I built my side business from $6 million to almost $15 million a year in sales. I just feel like if you're going to be screaming, swearing at somebody that has parts that you desperately need, 9 times out of 10 it's not going to end well for you, you know? Business is kind of about understanding what the situation at hand is. And sometimes the situation is you got to be really nice to the dude that has the parts you need because he's the only person who has it. Stop swearing at me and I can help you out. And he's just like, no, I would rather make my life way more difficult. That's on him, bro. Well, I've told this to multiple people and never written it, so here it goes. This happened about 1.5 years ago, and I worked the night shift as a shift manager at McDonald's. I showed up at around 8 p.m. and left at 6 in the morning. I come into work that night and see that our credit card machine connected to the front POS machine was broken, so no credit or debit in the lobby. About an hour in, a couple and their son come into the lobby ready to order, and I inform them that we are not able to accept credit or debit. The father seems a little disturbed by this fact and says that that's all he has. Now, I was taught to help the customer in any way possible, so my solution was to let one of the employees take the order on paper, ring it up at the drive-thru and pay for it with that machine, and everything would go as planned and they receive their food and go sit and eat. This is the bad part. About 10 minutes pass and the father comes up to me and pulls me aside, and the first thing he says to me is that I'm a piece of crap. As you could probably see, I was floored because I went out of my way to make sure he could get his food, and he proceeds to call me out as a liar for saying the front machine could not be broken because the one in the back was working fine. He even tells me that I made him look like a fool in front of his family for making him look poor. I have no idea to that part, and he keeps calling me out and I can't say anything back because I need this job. Living in Michigan, you need any kind of job. All I can say is I was sorry for the inconvenience, and after they leave, everyone working keeps asking what happened, and I truthfully told them I had no idea. Now, thinking that was done, I could get back to work. Nope, about 10 minutes later, we receive a phone call, and turns out it's the same guy calling to ream me out again, but yet again, I can't do anything but apologize. To this day, I have no idea what raged him so much to curse me out not once, but twice. I'm just not understanding how you made him look poor by just taking his money and running it at another machine. Like, what? Does he think there's levels to credit card machines and somehow the one in the back of the store is worse? I also love that, if the one in the back works, the one in the front can't be broken. All right, bro, let me break this down for you. If I have 2 computers, can one of them be broken and the other one not be broken? If the answer to that question is yes, okay, then congratulations, you understand how it works. And if you answered no to that question, well, then you just don't know how any of this works, so just go ahead and go sit in the corner, buddy. I'll run your card on the back machine. In the IT section I work in, all of our customers are internal company staff, but that doesn't stop them from occasionally being bad customers. On one occasion, we were requested to upload a new template. This should have been easy. The owner of the template does all of the updates, gives it to IT, we check it and make sure it will work with the macros and upload it. This time, however, the owner of the template was asked to make changes by the marketing department as they had ordered some new paper and the template needed to be changed to fit it. This started a massive fight between the two departments due to, in a nutshell, I'll spare you the details, neither side listening to the other. We found out that the owner of the template had demanded that the marketing department take ownership because we give up, and therefore the request to IT came from marketing. Our templates are delivered through Word, and we therefore are surprised to receive the template in a PDF format, which starts another fight. We explain that it's impossible to deliver the template in PDF format via Word, and if they wanted it in PDF, we could format it and it would be much better to be delivered that way via the internet. Nope, they wanted it to open in Word, but in PDF format, so the text couldn't be changed. I began to see what the original owner of the template meant. Again, I'll spare you the details, but cut to 3 months later when upper management gets involved, and the new template was delivered in Word to format and be updated. 2 weeks later, a help desk ticket was logged because apparently you print multiple copies of it at a time on the new paper, the paper catches fire. We were then asked to urgently roll back to the old version. I'm shocked how many of these stories rely on like someone in the company not believing the IT guy when he says something IT related. It's like, hey, believe it or not, you know, the guy that you pay to run the IT department is probably pretty knowledgeable about technology. So when they say it's not gonna work, it's not gonna work. Nah, just use our version. Proceeds to make a fire every time someone prints multiple copies of it. What type of formatting did they use that caused printers to literally burst into flames? I've never heard of that, but it sounds extremely intense, dude. Probably should have just listened to the IT department on what to do with technology. I used to work in a butcher and a guy came in to order some obscure amount, I think like 6.37 kilograms of beef mince. He demanded that I make 3 different bags of completely different weights because he was having friends over and wanted to pay for them to pay the exact amount of beef they ate. I was new at the time and had little experience with the complicated and ancient tills, so this was incredibly stressful and time-consuming. After finally making up the bags, he decided I was wrong and demanded I do it again. The other customers were getting very impatient, and I was beginning to get anxious, so I politely suggested I give him 1 bag and he as his friends split the bill evenly later. He took extreme offense to that idea and told me to F myself, threw the bags on the floor, spilling meat everywhere and stormed off swearing. This upset a few of the other customers and they left too, and the manager watched the whole thing happen, and as a result, I wasn't paid for my work that day and was demoted back to cleaning. Imagine like going over to someone's house for dinner, right? You eat the food, it's pretty good, and then they hand you a bill and they're like, that's how much you owe me for what you just ate. I feel like this is the weirdest interaction I've ever heard of. And even if you're pissed that somebody points out that it's weird, do you really need to throw the meat all over the ground, man? I mean, come on. Taking ground beef to an entirely new level it just didn't have to be at. Anyways, guys, I think that's gonna do it for the video. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, please be sure to press the like button. Let me know in the comment section down below what you thought. And of course, subscribe if you're new and turn on those notifications. If you really want to help me out, there's a link in the description which goes to a playlist of all the Reddit videos. So if you want to listen to it while you do your homework, play video games, whatever, feel free to do that. It helps me out. But yeah, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And on that note, don't get anyone pregnant. If you do, make sure they're hot. And I'll see you guys next time. I'm out. Peace.